Pecos Bill is the roughest, toughest cowboy that ever put a saddle on a four-legged critter. So naturally, he came from Texas. Now, Pecos Bill was the youngest of somewhere around 14 kids. Now, of course, none of them should sit still long enough for them to be counted, but Ma and Pa thought they had 14. Anyways, Pecos Bill was about 2 and had earned the respect of his siblings when his ma saw neighbors moving in 50 miles away. Well, considering that is far too close for comfort, they had to move. And so Ma and Pa got all the kids in the wagon, and they got all ready, and they went off to find themselves new pastures. Well, considering there was 14 or something kids in the wagon, well, it got wild real fast. And so their mother, while trying to heal the situation, was in the back, and Pecos Bill was in the backmost of the wagon, and then the wagon went over a bump in the road. Not that there was a road, but there was a bump, and the wagon went over it. So, Pecos Bill falls out the back of the wagon and hits his head on a rock. It didn't hurt poor little Pecos Bill, but it did shatter the rock. Well, Pecos Bill was so stunned that he didn't say nothing, and what could he say with that loud racket going on? Well, he happened to move along over to the nearby river, which happened to be the Pecos River, and he was just a-sitting there when along came a she-coyote, and being an animal seeing another animal in need, she took him under her wing. And so Pecos Bill grew up with coyotes. He learned how to run on 4 feet and 2 feet. He learned how to pull thorns out of his siblings' paws, and he, of course, learned how to howl at the moon. Well, one day Pecos Bill was sitting in the shade of a cactus when along came a Texan rider in all cowboy gear. Well, that man was sure surprised to see Pecos Bill, and so he cried out, "What in tarnation are you?" Bill merely replied, "Coyote." Well, the man was confused and said, "No, you ain't. You're a human being." Bill was equally confused and said, "A human being?" The man, tired of arguing with someone who obviously didn't know what he was talking about, said, "At any rate, you're a Texan. So come along with me and I'll bring you to civilization." That's exactly what he did. Well, Bill got adapted to civilization and was in the town, but he was still feeling homesick for his little coyote band. When one day in the tavern, he overheard 2 men talking. One of them went, "Why, they're the toughest gang east of the Mississippi." And the other man said, "Tougher than the hogwash hot snatchers?" Well, the first man said, "Yes. Why, the Hell's Gate gang is just as tough as a pack of coyotes." Well, Bill listened to this, and being homesick for coyotes, decided he'd best seek out this band. So he got directions from the men who were talking, and he went along with his newly found horse. And Bill was riding along when, unfortunately, his horse stuck its foot in a prairie hole. And so the horse's leg was broke right near bad. So Bill, being a kind creature, picked up the horse and continued on his journey. Well, it wasn't long before they came up to a bend in the road, and there was a rattlesnake right there, 50-foot long, rattling and angry. And it struck at Bill and tried to squeeze him tight so it could bite Bill's head off. Well, to the rattlesnake's surprise, Bill squeezed back and squeezed harder. Why, he right near squeezed the venom right out of that there rattlesnake. And so Bill gets in his head, "Why, I should use this rattlesnake as a lasso. It's just the right length and it's just the right thickness. So, Bill picks up his horse and puts the rattlesnake over his arm just like a lasso. And they continue on and they get to another bend in the road, and wouldn't you know it, there's a panther right there growling angry, and it roars! Well, to its surprise, Bill roars back, bigger and louder and scarier. Well, that right near shocked all the anger out of the panther, and he just sat her out and purred like, all pretty like. So Bill continued on. Well, when he got to the Hell's Gate gang, it surprised them more than when they found a bar of soap in one of their train robberies. So Bill became head of the Hell's Gate gang. And, of course, he weren't no robber, so he made them ranchers. And, one day, when he was just about ranching all the longhorns, he, was over by the river, not the Pecos, but something similar, and he saw a catfish jumping up. And wouldn't you know it, on the back of the catfish was a cowgirl. And, Pecos Bill only had just enough time to ask the girl's name and figure out that it was Slewfoot Sue. Well, it was love at first sight, and Pecos Bill searched up and down Texas. In fact, he got through half of Texas in only a week. And if you know how big Texas is, you know that is a mighty big task. Well, eventually, Pecos Bill found Slewfoot Sue's house, and so he, not knowing what else to do, merely walked out, sat on his haunches, and howled just like he did with his coyote folk. Of course, it weren't to the moon. It was to Slewfoot Sue. Well, Slewfoot Sue, hearing this, jumps up off of whatever she was doing, goes out the front door, down the porch steps, sits down right near Bill, and howls on with him. And that was pretty much an engagement ring for Bill. So, they got married and raised a hassle of little ones, and each of them could howl just as well as their parents. And although there are more stories to tell about Pecos Bill, that's about all you need to know.